Right. Shalom Israel. Before I start, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Makar double honors to the elders and apostles in Israel who rule and teach well, the Akims and the Iwas and byways pushing this word in truth and sincerity, the brothers and sisters in the truth. Now, quickly share my screen. And what I want to do, I want to share this video here. It's called The United Kingdom of Whitewashed History, Scottish and English Nobility, Exiles and Missionary. Now this is a video from a site called Thoughts on Camera. Now the video is 2 hours long, so I'm not going to play all of the video, but what I
there's 4 books.
Slovakia. What I will suggest is that you can go to the channel Thoughts on Camera, type in that title, The United Kingdom of Whitewashed History, Scottish and English Nobility, Exiles and Missionary, and just check out the full video. It's a nice watch, because normally when we hear about whitewashing, we hear about images that's been whitewashed over in Europe. You got things like the Russian icon. Now this is a book called Russian Icon, and this one here, what they do as well, they tend to price these things out of our range. So this book here is 1,300 and change, pounds, and this one over here is 6,600 and change, in pounds. And this is what normally happens. They price these things out of our price range. Now this one here is £24. Now if you look at the image that's on there, we'll go into this image that they put on this cheap one. They made it, so I'm not sure what the images are like inside, but on the front they've given you a false image, but they've made this book very cheap. But then when you come back to these ones, this one was 1,300, and this one is actually half price, so it was originally £2,700. You see the dark images that's in this book here. Now same thing like when we go to this. This is the 6,000 one. See that you've got the dark images here, and this is almost £7,000. And they know that a lot of us can't really afford these prices, so the truth, they hide it by pricing it out of our range sometimes. Now if you go to images, see a mixture of images. You see real images with fake. So like when you come to this now, this is an image of Moses. So it's put this up, Russian icon of Moses, and he's got a dark figured person, but yet still, if you go on the internet and type in images of Christ, you're more likely to get images of Europeans. And this is what has happened over the years. They've made us feel like we're nothing, told us we're nothing, repainted our images as themselves. Other images, see dark images here. I'm not sure who this is meant to be of. You've got the classic, you've got one of Mary and Christ, dark image. There's another dark image one here, and then you've got the fake ones, and this is what has happened for quite a while. And like I said, there's normally images of us over in Europe that you see. You don't really get much of our images of our ancestors or people of our own race or our own nation over in Europe, in England. It's normally those over in Europe. So that's why I wanted to show this video here. But before I go do that, this is Matthew chapter 24 verse 3. It says, "And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? And Yahushua answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. And this is what has happened to many of our people throughout the ages. We've been deceived, we've been told that we're nothing, been made to feel low, whilst our great images have been whitewashed. It says, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And like I said, if you go on the internet and type in images of Christ, you're going to get mainly images of Europeans. Anyone you type in the book is Europeans. You look at movies, they show movies of people in the book, in the Bible, they're casted as Europeans. I remember watching the Ten Commandments. The Egyptians were white, the Israelites were white, but when the Ethiopians came in, they were people of dark skin. Now, this is 1 Maccabees chapter 3, verse 47. It says, then they fasted that day and put on sackcloth and cast ashes upon their heads and rent their clothes and laid open the books of the law, the book of the law, wherein the heathen, and these other nations, had sought to paint the likeness of their images. And this is what we see here. We go to images, images of our foreparents have been whitewashed. And the thing is, this is known to be lies, but this won't the truth won't be told. They won't come out and say, well, you know what? We actually lied, we repainted your images, because they still want us to feel like we're nothing. That's the perception that's given. So like I said, normally it's images of us in Europe. You don't normally get told or shown about the images of our people over here in the United Kingdom that's been whitewashed. And this is why I like this video here. It's 2 hours long. I'm not going to play that much. You can go to Thoughts on Camera and type in the title, The United Kingdom of Whitewashed History, Scottish and English Nobility, Exiles and Missionaries, and check out the video. It's a good watch. So I'm going to play some of it and hopefully you can get edified. The brother that made the video as well, I'm not actually sure of his name, but all praises to the brother for the time and effort made in doing the video. And yeah, like I said, hopefully you can get some edification from it.
So there's 4 books primarily that we'll be looking at today. We're going to be looking at Charles C. Grenville, and this was released in 1875. And also we're going to be looking at the Memoirs of the Secret Services of John Mackay. And we're going to be looking at the Jacobite Memoirs, the Rebellion of 1745. And finally, we're going to be looking at the Jacobite Gleanings, the transportations in 1745. Now, who is John Mackay? Now, John Mackay was a Scottish spy. He was the first person to inform the British authorities of James II's intended invasion of England in 1692, after the former king had fled from France to England. In October 1693, he was made the inspector of the coast from Harwich to Dover, tasked with intercepting hostile intelligence. Yeah? Hostile intelligence. So this is what John Mackay was about. He was a spy, 007, and he gave information regarding an invasion which was to occur. Now, as you read the book, yeah, I know Benya Israel's probably done one on it, but somebody else has covered this story too, which is very interesting as well. So it's like a lot of people, a lot of historians are starting to acknowledge the history of this. So that's just to answer Cassandra's point. The preface says this: to the reader, October the 20th, 1732. Pretty near the time the papers were promised the public, they now appear. Most of the characters are inverted by Bishop Burnet in the 2nd and 3rd volumes of the history of his time, of his own time, which will not as yet set the lights for the reasons his son Thomas could give if be so proper. It is evident from the bishop's will that this is the whole history ought to have been published above 10 years ago. Okay, so let's get into it a little bit. So we're looking at this first book, the memoirs. So there's this guy here called Daniel Finch, the second Earl of Nottingham. Yeah. And let's look at the description, how John Mackay, the spy, described him. He was a contemporary scholar, you know, it's a viable, tangible source. And listen to how he's describing this person. And let's see if the two things correlate, if they line up. So he said, according to his memoirs, Daniel Earl of Nottingham, Secretary of State. Now, if we just go to the description where you can see it highlighted, he says he have also the exterior air of finance and application enough to make him very capable. In his habit and manners, very formal. So this guy in his habit and manners was very formal. He was a tall, thin, VER, very black man, like a Spaniard or Jew, about 50 years old. So he was a very black man, like a Spaniard or Jew, about 50 years old. Now, if you look at this description, let me get my arrow on side. Let's get this arrow so we can see. Let me point to certain things. All right, there's the arrow. Now, I'm not being funny here, but we know what he's saying. He said he was very black. Now, the only thing that's very black about this guy is his toupee or his wig. But when you look at his phenotype, he looks anything but as the description would have it to be. So this is Daniel Finch, second Earl of Nottingham. We know we're talking about Daniel Earl of Nottingham. But when you see this brother, it looks like Ozzy Osbourne or someone like that. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't seem to line up. All right, let's go to the next one. So that's Daniel Earl of Nottingham. Now, this is Mr. John McEwen, the ambassador to the King of Portugal. The ambassador to the King of Portugal. Many people thought they just whitewashed Jesus. No. Or whitewash Yeshua. No. They whitewash everything. They whitewash Egyptian history, Bible history, their own history. Everything's literally just been fixed. But all right. So this is John McEwen, 1615 to 1706. Now it says again in the memoirs, Foreign Ministers, page 143. Mr. McEwen, ambassador to the King of Portugal. And it says he was bred a common lawyer and had been many years employed in the affairs of Portugal, which he understands perfectly well. In King William's reign, he was made Lord Chancellor of Ireland and was once near being so in England. He is a man of intrigue, but very muddy in his conceptions, and not quickly understood in anything. In his complexion and manners, much of a Spaniard, a tall black man, 50 years old. So I'm looking at this brother, and again, it looks like a cousin of Ozzy Osbourne, but it doesn't look like a black Spaniard. Tall. It doesn't, well, he looks kind of tall, probably is tall, give him that. But, you know, the genetic makeup isn't appearing to line up. So, seems a bit interesting. But anyway, John McEwen, 1650 to 1706, was an English diplomat and judge. He held office simultaneously as Lord Chancellor of Ireland and an English ambassador to Portugal. In the later role, he and his son Paul negotiated the McEwen Treaty, the achievement for which John is chiefly remembered. Interesting. Again, you thought they just whitewashed Jesus? No, sir. They whitewashed the whole thing. All right. So, again, John, the Duke of Newcastle. So, John, the Duke of Newcastle. He had the best, you know, some of this old English the way it's written is kind of hard to decipher, you know, but he had the best estate in England, and employs most of his time in improving it, is very covetous, yet makes a great figure at his seat in Yorkshire, is firm for constitution of his country, and have one only daughter, who will be the richest heroes in Europe. He is a black, ruddy, complexioned man, near 60 years old. Now again, this looks like it could be Beethoven's cousin, or Stone Cold Steve Austin's cousin, or I don't know, but it doesn't look like it could be Wesley Snipes' cousin.
And what I wanted to say here, they knew that the term ruddy had nothing to do with being white or red. It says a black, ruddy complexioned man.
But as you see here, it doesn't seem to line up with the description of John Mackay. Yeah. Now, John Mackay, like I said, this memoir was put out before the sanitizing, the whitewashing, the conspiring, the revisionist history. Yeah, he was just calling a spade a spade. He was a spy. He had no alternative agenda. There was no pro-black thing, no pro-white thing, no anti-white, no anti-black. He was just a straight-up spy who documented what he came across and noted down what he saw. Okay, so let's continue a little bit further. Now again, this guy is called Andrew Fletcher of Salton, and it says regarding Andrew Fletcher of Salton. Now check out this complexion. Doesn't this remind you of somebody in Revelation? To a degree, to an extent. I don't know, but check it out. He have written for some excellent tracts, but not published in his name, and have a very fine genius. Is a low, thin man, brown complexion, full of fire, with a stern, sour look, and 50 years old. Interesting. Now again, if you look at the man then, he looks like Beethoven's cousin, he looks like Ozzy Osbourne's dad, but he doesn't seem to line up with the description given in the account. Now it says regarding Andrew Fletcher, this was a nobility of Scotland. This was a nobility of Scotland, yeah? A nobility of Scotland. And this brother, or well, he was supposed to be a brother, but I don't know what happened. He says he have written for excellent tracts. So no, yeah, he was very well versed, but not published in his name, and have a very fine genius. Is low, thin man, brown complexion. You know when people want to try to make it all symbolic or metaphorical. This is saying brown complexion. It's talking about the physical anatomy. It's not talking about brown as in his character was brown. It's not talking about brown as in his attitude was brown. No, it just means he had a brown phenotype, a brown, complexion. So full of fire, with a stern, sour look, and 50 years old. Okay, interesting. So we've looked at so far, we've looked at Daniel, we've looked at John, we've looked at John again, and we've looked at Andrew. Or we could say we've looked at the Earl of Nottingham, we've looked at what would you call him, the ambassador to Portugal, we've looked at the Duke of Newcastle, and we've looked at the nobility of Scotland. Interesting. So, again, another description by the spy, John Mackay. Charles Lennox, the Duke of Richmond. Now, how does he describe the Duke of Richmond? He says, he is a gentleman, good-natured to a fault, very well-bred, and have many valuable things in him, is an enemy to Buffonels, don't know what that is, very credulous, well-shaped, black complexion, much like King Charles, not 30 years old. Let's read that again. He is a gentleman, good-natured to a fault, very well-bred, and have many valuable things in him. Talk about his character, I'm assuming. Is an enemy to the Buffonels, very credulous, well-shaped, black complexion. Now, who's he comparing him to? Much like King Charles, not 30 years old. So, a black complexion. Now, you could say he's got black complexion, like Michael Jackson with vitiligo, but yeah, it just doesn't seem to line up with the description. Black complexion, Michael Jackson, vitiligo. It's not lining up. Long hair though, give him that. Looks kind of curly, like some kind of wool factor. But aside from that, don't know what's going on. Do you? Let's continue. So, another one. Charles Duke of St Albans. Charles Duke of St Albans. He's of, let's read it. He's a gentleman, every way deborn natural, well bred, doth not love buffonels. What is a buffonel? I need to look into that. Is well affected to the constitution of his country. He is of a black complexion, not too tall as the Duke of Northumberland, yet very like King Charles. Huh? So we have another description of these people looking like King Charles. Now, King Charles, in the previous statement, it says, is an enemy to the Buffonels, very credulous, well-shaped, black complexion, much like King Charles. So they're getting compared to a king called Charles. Interesting. Then this guy also, who is a, what does it say? A relative of that particular person. Let's read it. His son to King Charles II by Mrs. Gwynne was made by King William one of the bedchamber and captain of the bands of, I can't read that, and sent by that king to France to congratulate the marriage of Duke Burgundy. He is a gentleman of every way, born natural, well-bred, doth not love buffonels, is well affected to the constitution of his country. He is of a black complexion, not too tall as the Duke of Northumberland, yet very like King Charles. That's interesting. And then it goes on to describe another one. Charles Fitzroy, the Duke of Crafton. Yeah. So you got Charles Duke of St Albans being described like that. Now it's going to describe another Charles called Charles Fitzroy, the Duke of Grafton. And it says, is grandson to King Charles II and son to the heirs of Bennett, Earl of Arlington, is a very pretty gentleman, have been abroad in the world. So he's been about in the world, zealous for the constitution of his country, a tall black man, about 25 years old. And again, when you look at Charles II, you got this guy here, the Charles II, doesn't seem to line up. Got two witness accounts saying that he was a black guy, but again, looks like a member of Ozzy Osbourne's entourage. Then you got the and then this guy here, the Duke, Charles of St Albans. I didn't find. Well, I did do a search for this one, but I'm guessing if it's anything to go by, they're gonna look like this, which is very interesting. Yeah. So Charles Duke of St Albans is this guy here, and he's supposed to be black complexion, not too tall as the Duke of Northumberland, yet very like King Charles. And King Charles is supposed to be black. So something's not adding up. Something's not lining up. I wonder why. King Charles was the king of England, Scotland, and Ireland. King Charles II was. All right, let's continue. So this is Earl of Denbigh. Earl of Denbigh. Now, how does it describe the Earl of Denbigh? It says, but the difference between the king and him quitted that family and have a regiment of dragoons. He is a gentleman of good nature, but is of one of the greatest but is one of the greatest drinkers in England. So this guy had that Noah syndrome, yeah? Got a bit happy with the wine and the vine. He is tall, fat. Now listen to this description. It doesn't say he's sort of black, kind of black, should be black. His mama's black. His nan was black. He said, look, man, he is tall, fat, and very black, and turned off 40 years old. And turned off 40 years old. Now I'm looking at this brother here, and I'm thinking, was everybody suffering with what Michael Jackson had during this time? You know, that reverse, what is it, vitiligo thing, where the skin just turns white, you know, where the black just dissipates and then the white skin comes through. Was everybody suffering from the curse of leprosy? Like, I'm trying to understand Wagwan, just with all sincerity. I just want to, because I know Jesus had leprosy, because, you know, the Bible said he was black and all the portraits had him as white. So it stands to reason that he may have had leprosy. But did this whole landmass of Europe have leprosy too? Oh, you know, like, what's going on? Now, like, what's really popping? So we've seen a couple so far. We've only seen a couple. We've seen a couple. Should we do a quick summary so far? So we've seen Daniel Finch, the Earl of Nottingham. He's supposed to be black. We've seen the ambassador to the King of Portugal. Guess what? He's supposed to be black. We've saw John Duke of Newcastle, and yeah, forget it. And we've seen Andrew Fletcher of Sultan, and he's supposed to be brown. He's supposed to be brown. We've seen Charles Lennox, the Duke of Richmond, and again, same thing. We've seen the Duke of St Albans and the Duke of Grafton. Now we've only got an image of the Duke of St Albans, which is this image here, and he's got that vitiligo thing going on. Lack of vitamin D, as somebody has said. And now we got a man like Earl, and this guy's described as very black. I think there was another person who was described as very black. Who else was that? There was another one with very black in there. Yeah, this guy here. So Daniel the Finch, if you look here, he says, when it comes to Daniel, when it comes to a man like Daniel, yeah, Yah is my judge. When it comes to Daniel, he says he was a black man, like a Spaniard or a Jew.
So in this, it's letting you know that the Jews were also people of color.
Wow. And then it says he says here, a tall, thin, VER, very, yes, a VER, very black man, like a Spaniard or Jew. So my question is, what go on with all of this? Let's see. All right, that was some very bad patois, but let's move on. Okay, so we have the Earl man, very black and turned of 40 years old, looking the polar opposite of how he's supposed to be. Oh, okay. And again, you guys thought it was just Jesus that got whitewashed. You guys thought it was just the Egyptians that got whitewashed. Let's continue. So, got my arrow. Richard Lamley, the Earl of Scarborough. The Earl of Scarborough. Let's find out how he was supposed to look. He is a gentleman of very good sense, a great lover of the Constitution of his country, and an improver of trade. And his genius lay very much this way: a handsome man of brown complexion, turned of 50 years old. Now, this is kind of a stretch now, because he's got that red rosy cheek thing going on, yeah, and you know, I'm kind of that brown complexion, and I can't turn red rosy cheeks like this. You see me? So I only know like one particular phenotype that can kind of go red like that with them red rosy cheeks. You see me? So, boy, what go on with Richard? What's going on? Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Very suspect, but you know, it is what it is. So let's continue. Hopefully, people are not screaming or getting upset. Now, who's heard of sandwich? Now, okay, let me give you a bit of information. You know, when we say I want a sandwich, that was invented by a guy called Sandwich. Now, I don't think this is the guy who made it, but yeah, I just want you to know that sandwich didn't just pop out of the thin air and somebody goes, hey, sandwich. Yeah, somebody put the two breads together, and then I think obviously the person who did that, his name was called Sandwich. Yeah, now it's probably of this guy's posterity. So you have to take our hats off to man like Sandwich. Yeah, the black man invented the sandwich. I'm only ramping, but yeah, all right, boom. Edward Montagu, the Earl of Sandwich, now is a branch of the family of Montagu and grandson of that Earl, who was burnt at the sea in Solde Bay engagement 1665. He was a gentleman of house to the prince, of very ordinary parts, married the witty Lord Rockefeller's daughter, or is it Rockefeller or Rose something? I don't know. No, not Rockefeller. I don't know what it says. Rose something daughter, who makes him very expensive. A tall, thin black man, about 55 years old. Now, somebody said, watch the shoes then. This guy's got a bow on his shoes, flossing. He's got them Aladdin sneakers. Yeah. He's got that Moorish coat, but he's got that Casper skin, despite it's supposed to be in a black man. That's interesting. So let's have a look. So the account is that he's supposed to be tall, thin, black man, about 35 years old.
All right, so you get the gist of what's happening. You know, these scriptures have been, I mean, these images, I should say, have been whitewashed. So before I close out, I just want to close out with some scriptures. This is 2 John 1. So this is 2 John 1 and verse 7. It says, for many deceivers are entered into the world who confess not that Yahweh Shai Mashiach is come in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an antichrist. Now, we can see that there's a lot of antichrists about, because if the scriptures are describing Yahweh Shai as being a man of color, continually depicting him as of being a different race and a different color, that is an antichrist, because you're not acknowledging that he came in the flesh. And what does the scripture say? It's luck here. Let me get this. This is John chapter 8. I think it was 7. Yeah, John 7. Sorry. John 7 and 38. It says, he that believeth on me, as the scripture has said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. So you have to believe as the scriptures has said. The scriptures describe Yahweh Shai as being a man of color. And it says, as if burnt in a furnace. And all the images that we will find, even of his people, will be those of a different race of people. So that's not believing as the scriptures has said, you know. And the scripture calls anyone who wants to do that an antichrist, because you're not believing that he actually came in the flesh. And if he did come in the flesh, you're not believing the description that's given of him. Now, the last scripture I want to bring out before I close, let me get that. This is Revelation 12 and verse 9. It says, and the great dragon was cast out, the old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So this is what has been happening. The whole world has been deceived to believe in that, you know, certain of the people that existed in history, Yahushua being the main one, was not a person of color. No, the description of him, we couldn't get the description. Revelation 1. The description of him to the images that we see is totally different, and that would make those that do such thing, according to the scriptures, an antichrist. So this is Revelation chapter 1 verse 14. It says, his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. So the hair on his head and the hair on his face were white as wool, wool being the texture, white being the color. It says, and his feet like unto fine brass. We know brass is a derivative of brown, but it says as if they burned in a furnace. Yeah, so dark brown, and his voice as the sound of many waters. So it's not just Yahushua that's been whitewashed, that's the main one, but our ancestors in Europe, when we went through some of the Russian icon images, and those that were actually in Britain themselves have been whitewashed. And that's why I like this video. So yeah, if you've got some time, go to this channel, Thoughts on Camera, type in the United Kingdom of Whitewashed History, Scottish and English Nobility, Exiles and Missionary. All I played was 23 minutes of it, so you've got like a good hour 40 left. Oh yeah, good hour 40 minutes. Just check it out. You know, it's a good video, good edification, and it shows some of our ancestors on this side of the waters over in Britain, which has had their images whitewashed and totally wiped out of the records. So with that, I'm going to close out and give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakar Kadash, Kwam Yasha Allah.